everyone. Welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean, and this is Richie to my right, my co-host. And we are here every Monday evening, 6:30 p.m. Is that right? And Thursday morning, and on the weekends in the morning. We're on Channel 23, Manchester Cable. We are, Richie and I are very concerned for the state of affairs in our country. We believe we're in deep peril, and we're here to report information and news that you won't hear from the mainstream media, hoping to inform you of some of the things that are hidden from you in our society, mostly strategically and in some cases inadvertently. But we both are state coordinators for the National Liberty Alliance, and and Richie and I, we hold meetings every week on Wednesday evenings. Anybody's welcome to attend. It's here in Manchester. We also have a YouTube channel called Inform New Hampshire and a Facebook page, also Inform New Hampshire. Feel free to stop by, watch our shows, hit the like button, and subscribe if you will. We're happy to have you there. Comments are always welcome. Our email is below on the screen there for you to send emails to us if you like. One of the things that National Liberty Alliance, or the main thing the National Liberty Alliance is committed to, is the reinstatement of the grand juries that were taken from us in 1946 through a legal footnote in a proceeding. And while America was asleep and recovering from the war, I guess, busy going to work and making babies, we lost that the common law grand juries, and it was a powerful tool. It still is a powerful tool. We just aren't using it. It is not something that we need permission to use from the government. It is a separate entity from the government. If you do just a small amount of research, reading U.S. versus Williams, you'll see that the Justice Scalia wrote extensively about the common law grand juries and pointed out that it is a useful tool for us to investigate and indict corruption within our government and government institutions. So, brief word real quick about Jerry DeLemus, who is a great friend of ours. He is the husband of one of our state representatives here in New Hampshire, Sue DeLemus, and he has been kidnapped and detained and incarcerated by none other than the for-profit, privately owned corporation known as the federal government, I guess the FBI in this case, and he's being held out in Nevada. So you want to say something about that?
Yes. Yeah, Jerry's been railroaded he's been in jail for over 4 months now, and the man has done nothing wrong. However, if anybody would like to contribute, I know him and his wife, Sue, are having a very difficult time. And if you can help out financially for their legal aid, go to www.freejerrydelemus.com and contribute what you can. The spelling of that is JERRYDELEMUS. And I'm sure they'd appreciate it. And on a similar note, I just found out today from talking with my brother, because I don't watch TV, that one of the Clintons was set free. The FBI isn't going to press any charges against her, so that's encouraging news. That somebody who, well, she deserves to be in prison or put to death. She's a piece of garbage, and the FBI didn't see fit to do anything with her. But you got Jerry DeLemus in prison for 4 months, and he's done nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. And he's in prison. Gotta love this country, or what it's becoming. I used to love it, but I question it now. I apologize. Jerry DeLemus is the one who needs the help, and his wife, Sue. So if you could see fit and keep them in your prayers, please.
So I guess what they're doing is training us that they're above the law. Many of the infractions that were listed by the FBI today on the TV were infractions that other people have lost their careers for and also been put in jail for. So somehow Hillary Clinton is above the law. It might have something to do for the fact that it's not really a government institution that she's working for. It is a privately owned for-profit corporation all of which are owned up the chain of command by the IMF and the United Nations. So we really do.
Yeah, but there's probably something else that has to do with it. The fact that Bill, the former president, met with Loretta Lynn, the Attorney General, a few days ago. That probably had something to do with it, too. I don't know what, but...
Might have given her the ultimatums.
Pardon the cynicism, but it's like every week you get more and more disgruntled over things the government does. I wish the good people that work in government, and there's plenty of them out there, would speak up. That would certainly help. But the show today, anyway, is about, we're trying to tie it together. Actually, Pat Murphy was supposed to be with us, and he couldn't make it. So we're trying to tie this show into the last episode 19 and 21. And one of the first topics that we have, if you want to go over or touch upon it, Dean, is the, I guess it's the immigration problem that we have in this country.
It's a big problem. The government reports that there are 61 plus million aliens in this country. 15.7 million are illegal. So why do they search you and I when we go on an airplane or a state federal building, when in fact they've opened up the borders and they're allowing the illegals to come in at will? And they're even flying them in now without even putting them through customs or immigration.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to say about that, Dean, is back in 1986, Ronald Reagan granted amnesty to over 3 million of them. I don't know the exact number, but it was over 3 million. And sometime during the Clinton administration in the 90s, they reported that there's between 12 and 20 million illegals in this country. And I've been hearing that number right up until about a year ago. And I believe it was the General Accounting Office, but I could be wrong about that, last year came out and said there are 41 plus million illegals in this country. And that was a year ago. The government, I think, or parts of the government, is still saying there's between 12 and 20 million. But the figure that I recently heard was 61 million aliens. Now, they claim 15.7 are illegal, which I highly dispute, because that's in the 12 to 20 million range that they've been using for 20 years. And I believe the General Accounting Office, they've been pretty accurate and pretty honest with, I think, the people, at least as far as I know. And if they said that there's 41 plus million last year, I got to figure that's up around 43 now, 45 maybe. I don't know what the number is. The gates are wide open. They're letting them come in. But you get searched at the airline, so you tell me where the justification is when they say, well, we're trying to keep you safe. You're trying to keep me safe. Keep the terrorists out of here. You're claiming this terrorism. There hasn't been a terrorist attack in 15 years. That's because our security's so great, right? With 61 million aliens coming in. Be serious.
All right. So why can't the federal government stop the debt ceiling? Is that where we're moving on to now?
Sure.
All right.
Unless you had a comment on the illegals.
Just
illegals.
Well, I heard someone offer up a plan to send them all on a bus down to Washington, D.C. with a bag lunch. I thought that was a good idea.
No comment.
Why can't the federal government stop the debt ceiling? There is a simple solution, and no one in our government can think of it. Do we really need them as our representatives?
Yeah, well,
So-
one of the things that I got on that, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, because in 1913, the Federal Reserve took over our money supply from the federal government, which didn't have the authority to give it to them. They violated the Constitution in doing that. Since then, we've been paying the Federal Reserve interest on the debt. All the interest that's on the debt goes to the Federal Reserve, goes in their pockets. And the Federal Reserve is the Rothschilds and all those nitwits. I use that term because, as far as I'm concerned, they're all inbreds. They think, well, they do. I mean, there's too much inbreeding in the family. They think they know how to live for you. They want to control your life and make you a slave, a servant, a serf, I don't know, call it what you will. And they're doing a good job of it, too, by the way, because people aren't waking up, which is why we do this show. Hopefully we will wake people up. But all you have to do is get rid of the Fed and you get rid of the debt. And you're not looking at Albert Einstein here. This doesn't take a lot to figure it out. say goodbye to the Federal Reserve Bank, and the debt goes away. You pay it down, you pay it off, the interest stops. This debt clock doesn't keep going, and I don't know what the stats were. I mean, I looked at it several years ago, and the stats were, you know, every man, woman, and child had to pay over $30,000 at the time, or some figure. I don't even recall what it was. But now it's almost $20 trillion. And we don't owe it, by the way.
Here it is right here. I have a...
Oh, you got it up there? Okay, good.
Yeah, I have a computer to my left here, which you can't see, but the numbers aren't coming up, so I pulled it up on my phone here. We're at $19.3 trillion in debt. The debt per citizen is $59,700, but the debt per taxpayer is $161,000. So for everyone that's working in the United States, you have an additional debt of $161,000.
And that's people that are working today, right now. What about your children who haven't got into the workforce, or your grandchildren? What are they going to owe if this continues?
And that doesn't include the, 94 million people who are no longer in the workforce. There was an interesting stat here, and by the way, you can look this up if you just type in usdebtclock.org. It'll bring up all these stats, and it's very interesting to look at. The liability, or the debt per taxpayer in this country, is roughly $858,000. That's a little different than what I just read you up there, but that is the liability per taxpayer, which includes unfunded mandates and things like that. The assets per citizen are $378,000. So the actual assets of the country per citizen are less than half of what the liabilities are, which is a very poor situation to be in for we the people. There's a couple other interesting things here. The current U.S. population is 323 million. The workforce right now is 151 million, so a little less than half of the people in the country are working.
Is that counting the 61 million aliens?
I'm not sure if that's even in here. I don't know. It's a good question, though. It's a very good question. Official unemployed, this is kind of a wacky figure. Official unemployed is 7.3 million. Actual unemployed is 15.2 million. Now, both those numbers, I'm sure, are very doctored up, so I wouldn't rely on those for anything. Full-time workers is 123 million. Part-time workers, 27 million. I don't really believe those either. Anyway, so as you can see, we are in a lot of hurt. The U.S. federal budget deficit is $5 trillion.
Annually?
Yeah. Or no. One. I'm not sure.
That sounded like it might be annually. That's why I questioned it. I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Social Security liability, 15 billion. Or 15 trillion, sorry.
Hey, just to interrupt on that part,
Yep.
I know it doesn't have anything to do with, or it does have something to do with the debt, but why is it the government always threatens us, the taxpayers, by saying Social Security's in debt, you might not have it in 10 years or 15 years? I've even heard rumors that it's going this year. But you never hear about food stamps, welfare, Section 8 housing. That's never threatened. That's always there for anybody, including illegal aliens. But they threaten us with the Social Security that we paid into all our life, and that the Congress has taken money out of several times and not paid back. I just wanted to bring that to light because that is a fact too, and you can check that out.
So the income tax revenue for the federal government is $1.6 trillion, and payroll tax revenue is $1.1 trillion, and corporate tax revenue is $330 billion. So if you look down here and you see that the living in poverty is 46 million people, 46.8 million, it might have something to do with the fact that the U.S. government is sucking $1.6 trillion out of our economy in income tax revenue, payroll tax, which of course is unconstitutional for the federal government to be extracting payroll tax from we the people, and that's at $1.1 trillion per year. Wonder if that has anything to do with poverty in this country. All right. What else we got, Richie?
I don't know. What do you got there for?
New Hampshire legislature just approved $1.5 million to hire more police officers for the drug problem. Isn't it too late to help anyone when the police show up to arrest you for drugs? Are we pushing for a total police state?
Yeah, that's kind of what my whole point about that was. I don't have an axe to grind with the police. I used to be in law enforcement, but when the legislature appropriates $1.5 million to hire cops, that's for 1 year. What are you going to do for the second year? Keep appropriating the $1.5 million? And it doesn't help the people who are hooked on heroin. The cops are arresting them, or even if they're trying to help them at that point, the person's hooked. Put the money into educating the children at an early age, but they don't want to do that. Education is the best thing we could do for our kids, to keep them off of drugs, out of trouble, and maybe give them something to shoot for. But instead we hire more cops. There's plenty of cops. You got Homeland Security, you got all the federal agencies, all the state agencies, all the county agencies, all the city agencies. You don't have enough cops, law enforcement? Why don't we just put the military in every corner? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But that was my whole point with it, is why do we bother to hire more cops? They're out there. They're going to arrest people. It's too late then. Someone's already addicted to heroin. If you want to stop it, do the right thing. Education. Sorry.
Yeah, I would question the agenda behind hiring more cops when the perpetrators bringing in the drugs into this state are being protected. If you just look up the work from Mike Gill, what's the name of his site? State of Corruption.
State of Corruption.
Mike Gill, State of Corruption. Have a look at what he's doing, single-handedly taking on the corruption in the state. He's a brave man. He's a little unconventional in how he operates, but he's been at it for a number of years now, and
he deserves everyone's support, too.
he's exposing the corruption at the highest levels of government. And for those of you that scoff at that, I just want you to know that I can appreciate that you wouldn't believe that people could be so evil as to be trusted with our, at the highest levels of government, and at the same time be filtering in and benefiting from the drug trade within this state. But it's happening, and it's coming to light. I invite you to do your own research, find out for yourself, and see where it takes you. State of Corruption, Mike Gill. What else? Okay, here we go. Why do Americans have to pay tax on their time and labor? The 16th Amendment was shot down in the Supreme Court. Numerous cases uphold the fact that Americans do not have to pay tax on their wages and compensation. The government, however, via the IRS, comes down with a SWAT team and kicks your door in to seize your assets if you do not pay the tax that is unconstitutional.
And the problem that I have with that is that they can't place a tax on your time and labor. The 16th Amendment was never ratified. There weren't enough states there to ratify it. So for that reason, it didn't do it. That's been held up in numerous court cases. And if you want to go to, it's a great documentary that Aaron Russo did. It's America, Freedom to Fascism. Check that out. And they mention numerous cases of the Supreme Court cases of the law. Write them down, check them out. You'll find out that what we're saying and what Aaron Russo said is true. You don't have to pay taxes. Now, I'm not advocating anybody doesn't, because if you don't, they'll kick your door, seize your assets and everything else, because we live in tyrannical government. But you don't have to by law, because there is no law compelling you to pay a tax on your wages, not income. You watch that video and you look into it, you'll find out what I'm talking about. But our government does it, just like they do everything else that's illegal. You start finding this stuff out, and you're learning that you're living in a matrix, and you're on the wrong side. And what we've been conditioned to believe our whole life is wrong. We've been taught wrong, intentionally, to misguide us and to overturn this government, which at one time was the greatest nation on earth. It's not anymore. We're heading for third world status, and that's a shame. You got anything to say on that, Dean?
Well, I agree with everything you said, that what the government has done, and it's not a government, it's a privately owned for-profit corporation, so is the IRS, and they claim to have received your consent to be a submissive U.S. citizen, which is subservient to the whims of the U.S. government, which is just a corporation. So they claim to be operating with your consent under contract, but the contracts are null and void because you had no awareness of the contract. So when you signed for your driver's license or your social security card, you were not aware that what they were doing was manipulating your and securitizing your the assets. You're actually the creditor for the U.S. debt. So when Richie and I were talking in the beginning about the U.S. debt clock and the debt being $19.3 trillion, that's the debt of the United States of America Incorporated, so the corporation. We are the surety of that corporation because they went into bankruptcy. And so my understanding of it is that we are the guarantors of that debt, but it's really their debt. So,
well, the government claims that we're the guarantors of it, but we're not. Yes.
Yep. So anyway, they have, in a very sophisticated manner, bamboozled us into participating in this Ponzi scheme, and part of that participation was they've been granted the monopoly on force, and so we have to face the barrel of a gun if we don't comply, and that, my friends, is not voluntary compliance at all. So the whole thing is a scam, and once a good amount of us figure it out and start rising up, get off our couches and get involved and start resisting, then we will take this country back and restore it to the organic style government that we had once upon a time. So why do we keep electing the same dumb politicians who know absolutely nothing about the U.S. Constitution? Their ignorance is giving us a slow death. They keep passing statutes in violation of the Constitution and not even knowing it. And boy, does that happen every day up in Concord. I got to tell you, the level of idiocy going on up there to...
well, the 1.5 million is a good example for the police.
Right.
On the heroin addict. The other one with the right to travel that Bill Goulet filed, and everybody shot it down because they said, well, the state's going to be losing revenue. If you're concerned about the state, you should be concerned about your constituents and putting money in their pocket, because the money that goes into the people's pocket generates the economy, not what you put in the state's pocket. That's taken out of the economy. Okay, but what we're doing now is, well, I don't even want to talk about what we're doing now, but it's so out of control, and I've talked to numerous people. By the way, I'm generalizing here. There are very good people working in our government that are conscientious, but there are people who are totally clueless. And when I talk to them about the Constitution, they look at me like I had three heads. They knew all about the state Constitution, but the federal Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, I don't know nothing. And they don't. It's obvious. Matter of fact, give any of these politicians that you're into a test. Ask them how many articles and how many amendments are in the Constitution. The answer is there are 7 articles and 27 amendments. If they don't know that, don't vote for them. At the very least, they should know that.
So real quick, what is happening to the slow disappearance of money in America? Everyone seems to be using plastic instead of money. Why do you think the people that control our money supply would want us to be using electronic currency rather than paper currency? Anyone? Because then they control you and I at the push of a button, and you and I can't store cash, hide cash. Basically, they own it all. They've passed laws that state that the money that you have in your bank is not actually your money. It belongs to the bank. So if you get into an argument when they close the bank and go into a bank holiday, you lose. You lose whatever you have in the bank. If you don't own it, control it, have it in your hands, it's not yours. The bank owns it. All right, so anything to say about that?
Yeah, if you're saying, you're trying to tell me that if I have a piece of plastic, a debit card, and I don't use cash, and I just continue to use it until they slowly eliminate cash, they can just say, well, we don't like your political views, so we're just going to erase you out of the system. And when I go to get cash, because I'd like to eat, there is no cash for me. And the debit card doesn't work, and they just get rid of me in the computer, so my ID, nothing exists. You're saying that could happen?
That's exactly what's happening in the beginning stages, what's called a no-fly list. They randomly, arbitrarily pick people that put on the no-fly list, and now all your ignorant politicians are doing the bidding of whoever their puppeteers are at the international banking cartel, and they're suggesting that anybody that's on the no-fly list should have a reduction of their fundamental rights and not be allowed to carry firearms and not be allowed to travel. So that's the beginning stages of them implementing total control, total tyranny.
So you're guilty until proven innocent.
That's exactly right. Now,
Yeah,
we're getting close to the end here, so let's just talk a little bit about Chris Ann Hall. You want to mention Chris Ann
Yeah.
Hall and who she is?
Chris Ann Hall is a constitutional attorney, lives in Florida. She travels the country teaching the Constitution, various aspects of it. And she's coming to New Hampshire. Actually, next week she's going to be in Keene at a constitutional camp. But I don't know if that's open to the public or not. I don't know too much about that. However, on Monday, July 11th, she's coming to the VFW in Milford, and I happen to be sponsoring her for that event, Richard Mira for sheriff. And she's coming at 5:30, or the event's going to be at 5:30 to 8 o'clock Monday evening. It's free to the public. Please come. Anybody that comes will receive a free pocket constitution like I have, similar to this, but different. And we'll try to put up some type of food, cookies, whatever, brownies or something to that effect.
It's a great opportunity. Chris Ann, if you haven't seen her, you can see her on YouTube. She has a radio show as well. She does a genealogy of the Constitution. It's an amazing talk about the history, starting from the Magna Carta, starting from before the Magna Carta, Charter of 1100, I think it was, 1110. She takes us forward over time, and you begin to see, you'll learn more in an hour with her than you probably ever learned in your whole life on the Constitution. So it's a great event. It's great for kids to come as well. Bring anyone you want. We can seat up to 250 people. It's at the VFW in Milford, and we would love to have you there.
If you have junior high or high school age kids, please bring them.
All right, that's the end of our show, folks. We appreciate you tuning in. Come see us next week.
Thank you very much. Share this, please.